And of course, we have foreseen several options for discussing FAQs, etc. Just in a brief introduction, as Time Machine organization, we are an association based in Vienna. Also, we are very much distributed. So it's our main parts here are dealing with 4D technologies, big data approaches for specifically cultural heritage and cultural history. And the idea is, of course, to combining technological tools, but also data sets together in order to reaching some outreach, for instance, for planning, for, of course, research in various phases, but also for creative industries, cultural heritage, tourism, etc. Time Machine Organization is an association. Currently, we are having around 720 member associations. Of course, my great welcome to all of you to assessing a possible joining here. And one of our assets is, of course, a set of local time machines. That is a group of 85 regional and local hubs dealing with city heritage history and are distributed all over Europe, but also beyond. Also, as Time Machine organization, we are very active within European programs, so taking part and being involved in more or less all major European programs which are dealing with digital and heritage. So please feel invited to joining us and checking out also opportunities like calls on the Time Machine website. One of the projects, of course, we are dealing with is this one we are meeting for today. So it's a 3D big data space project. That is a project which is currently in more or less half of the runtime. And it's my great pleasure also to welcoming today Diego Lopez, our project officer from the European Commission. So as a project, our approach is to specifically enlarging the set of 3D data available in the data space, and of course, also to testing out storage opportunities and enhancing, enriching these data sets. Besides that, of course, it's something where we are offering and testing specifically with outreach tools. So, of course, it's about visualization. It's about utilizing these data sets within various tools, but also to building capacity, organizing training. So, for instance, we had a summer school organized. We'll have a next one next year. Also, several courses which are available at this point around topics dealing with 3D usage utilization of cultural heritage. And of course, that is marked in red, validating the applications in outreach scenarios. And that is the point where we are, of course, happy to having these outreach calls today. And that is my momentum to handing over to my colleague Beatrice Fayanti for explaining.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Sander. Here's the agenda for today. As Sander anticipated, the call that we are now presenting to you is part of 3D Week Data Space. We are going to have this first 5 minutes actually having a look at what the call is about and what are the eligibility, obligations, and objectives of the call. We will have a short time for you to ask questions that are related to these specific, let's say, eligibility parts or objectives. So very close to the call's content, because after that, we are going to actually delve deeper into the most important part of today, which is presenting to you what are the tools that have been developed within 3D Big Data Space and that you are going to test with your applications. We are then going to have a bit of time to discuss, to have questions from you about these tools, about how to integrate them in your own designs. So we can go on with the next slide. So as we saw, this is part of the 3D Week Data Space project. So a youth-funded project with this idea of fostering long-term 3D cultural heritage storage. This is the second of the calls that have been published for this project. And in particular, we are focusing on the topic of outreach in this case. And in this call, we're going to fund with 2 subcontracts 10,000 euros for the realization of 3D experience using 3D Big Data Space tools that are going then to be showcased to the public. Okay. The idea so is actually to focus on design ideas that are using 3D cultural heritage to create experiences and outreach activities and using those tools. It is possible for applicants to also participate together with a project partner, which can be any organization that is also interested into creating this sort of experiences. And the overarching goal is actually to then engage with the public and use 3D heritage in applications that can span from storytelling, exhibitions, education, gamifications, but actually anything that can engage the public with a 3D cultural heritage asset. So let's delve a bit into the most technical part. So, what are the eligibility obligations and expected outcomes of the call? Winners must create, as I said, a 3D heritage experience while using one of the tools. So, we have either the PCSS Viewer, the 4D Viewer, and the Room XR Viewer, which are going to be presented after this part of the presentation. Participants can choose whether to use their own 3D assets or assets from the website 3drepo.au or a combination of the two, and then have to showcase this to the public, reaching at least 100 users. Now, when we mention these 100 users, we both include online and offline users, as actually quantifying and documenting the people that have been reached is part itself of the obligation of the winner. Moreover, the winners must document what they did and present it at a European public event. The time frame to do these tasks is between March and June 2026. So, coming at the eligibility, the applicant's organization has to be based in a member state of the European Union or in a country that is currently associated with Horizon Europe. It must not be receiving or have received funding for the same proposed outreach deployment, so no double funding. And it must use the funding exclusively for the specified purposes. In terms of contracting, the idea is really for the winners to test in real life scenario, in real life test beds, the tools that have been developed from 3D Big Data Space. And to do so, they're going to sign a subcontract that is going to then be include all this activity that the applicant has proposed in their application. So for the outreach activity, to provide the data, but also to document the results, for instance, the audience measures, but also all the series of, say, development activities that have been done. Each project, moreover, will be then supported both from the 3D Big Data Space Consortium for everything that regards the tool usage, but also from Time Machine for everything that is about monitoring and reporting of the activities. Next slide. Sorry, Sander. Okay, first, perfect. Sorry, I wasn't seeing that. So we get at the end of this very short presentation. You can find more details in the website of the call, either using this link or the QR code in the slide. And the time frame for the application is actually until
Suppose my colleague may have lost her connection, so let me maybe continue here. So the deadline of applications will be 15th of December 2025. And you see we have a 1.5 month period before the notification of acceptance takes place. Afterwards, of course, as mentioned by my colleague, we will have this contracting phase where we are assigning and signing this contract project itself from March to June 2026. So maybe that's in a nutshell about the call and the application. So also please feel free to use the QR code to open the application form. And of course, it would be interesting for us. Are there any questions at this stage, at this point, before we are diving into the specific tools which are proposed to use? So,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Sander. So we do have one already in the chat to get us going from Sinem Aslan. They're asking, should we have already digitized artifacts during the application? And if yes, how many of them should have already been digitized during the application? For the project, if it's accepted, how many artifacts should have been ready digitized in total?
I see your point. Many thanks for this question. So two strands are possible at this point within these, I would say, some core scheme here at this point. So at the one hand, this scheme is not proposed to digitizing artifacts freshly, so that won't be the content, but the focus is more on outreach activities. So utilizing tools for showcasing artifacts to a wider public. And for that, you could, of course, either use artifacts, objects, 3D assets from our database. As mentioned, we are currently maintaining a database with 85,000 3D objects to be used with the applications, or upload ingesting using tools, 3D assets from your data repositories or whatever. Digitization itself, it's not part of this call, but has been part of our calls.
Great. Thank you, Sander. We have a second question also in the chat from Christina. She's wondering if somebody could suggest using more than one tool, for example, the PCSS Viewer and the 4D Viewer in the same proposal.
With great pleasure, no obligations at this point to having a maximum number at this point. Rather to say it's a minimum to using one of the tools at this point.
Okay, great. Very clear. We have a third question from Tanya, asking to kindly mention the extent of the proposal for application. I'm not quite sure what that means. Tanya, you could chime in if you like.
Hello, sir. I wanted to know, so for example, I have already started a project where I have started drone documenting a city in India, which is Hyderabad. And I'm looking for funding where I would like to document different architectural style. So by the extent, I meant that is it only related to any artifact or can we take n number of buildings like that? I hope this is
Mm.
this is under the category which we are discussing. Thank you.
Tanya, many thanks for this question. So at this point, we are not limiting, of course, this outreach at this point. Of course, you can also work with a number of objects in that case. Also, for instance, a number of buildings you are proposing using at this point. Our tools, a clear focus in that case will be, of course, a outreach event. So how to communicating, utilizing these type of assets in a educational research outreach event functionality and type of approach at this point. Hope that would answer your question.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Another question. We'll go through them as quick as we can. I think are freelancers able to be applicants in collaboration with other cultural heritage operators, for example, in the GLAM sector, NGOs?
There are no exclusions of freelancers.
Okay, clear. Is this invitation also applicable for non-professional organizations working with volunteers in the heritage field?
That's a good point. So of course, it needs to be a legal entity at this point. I think we would need to double check, of course, in this case, what are maybe eligibility criteria. Please keep in mind that will be a subcontract made with that specific organization, which needs, of course, to have a legal persona, a legal entity at this point to issuing this type of a contract at this point. So maybe we can use that question and also other questions and flagging them also for the FAQs. So we plan to issue a set of FAQs based on your questions also afterwards. So let us maybe check this and provide an answer in a written form.
Okay, great. Thank you. And there's a quick follow-up question on the first question about the artifacts. There's no limit on quantity. No.
No.
Okay. Then we have, can the 3D big data space tools be used alongside other digital tools for an immersive exhibition?
Mm-hmm. So that is definitely a possible option in that case. So one of the scenarios we had in mind, and I would say concepting, of course, this call has been, of course, embedding these tools in a website, for instance, but also combining it with other tools. So again, minimum requirement here would be to having these tools used, or at least one of the tools used also in these contexts, but no limitation to extend or to combine it.
Okay, and then before we continue on, there's one more, and then there'll of course be chances for more questions after the next segment, so don't everybody feel rushed. But we have one more. Where can we find project partners that might wish to collaborate? If we don't have a cultural heritage partner from the consortium, we can have any use case we want in collaboration with our own cultural heritage. Can we have in collaboration with our own partner?
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a very good question at this point. So maybe one option in that case could be, of course, to having a look at the Time Machine website. So for usual, we are having a member base, of course, there, but also in the call section there's an option to issuing, of course, a request for finding partners in calls. So of course, this call action here is also proposed there, listed there. And of course, you could, of course, issue a request for, I've searched for a partner for this and that type of project. Maybe I could kindly asking my colleagues to putting the link to this call and to this search and find section in the chat for.
Okay, so thank you, Sander, and thank you everyone for those questions so far. This will lead us into actually to respect the time a little bit. We will go into the next presentation of the tools. So I will have to reintroduce Sander, but we'll have Sander going first, then Alexander, and then Pavel. So please go ahead introducing the 4D viewer.
With great pleasure. So in that case, it's also a series of viewers we are having proposed and made ready for you at this point. Let me start briefly my timers to not overstressing your patience at this moment. So again, also for the implementation, of course, one of the points here is to providing you with some support. So all applications are usable without a coding on your side. And of course, we will provide or do provide already tutorials and info materials and also to a certain extent implementation support. Three scenarios could be served with these 40 viewers at this point. At the one hand, of course, something for supporting to explore city heritage in an exhibition, and everything is also to using applications on the specific site. So for instance, for guided city walks to discover lost heritage as one idea, but I'm sure you have much better than that. Also, we have the opportunity to having a virtual reality experiences to explore 3D cultural heritage. Let me briefly introduce how this works more or less. So at the one hand, it's about exploring the city heritage in an exhibition. In that case, it's something where we are offering a tool which is called 4D Browser. So that is a location-based browser specifically for desktop systems. And the main idea here is to enable people to discover the city's evolvement and, of course, the change of cityscapes, but also access to media over time at this point. So 4dbrowser.org is the link to it. And what you see here is, of course, to showcasing the transition of historical cities at this point. We are working with several groups already. So Amsterdam, Sion, you have seen, but also Wettelrode. It's an important industrial heritage site in Saxony-Anhalt. How does it work? As a workflow, you can, let me start this video. It works in the way that you are creating an account at this website. So if you're logging in at this point, you could either register or typing your login data in there in order to entering the for the viewport and specifically having the app opportunity to editing content. We go to the next slide at this point. That would mean to placing a 3D model in the location. Let me play this video as well. For thus, you are having specific controls if you're logged in, so that you can search, for instance, for a 3D file. In our case, we are mostly working with GLB or OBJ files at this point, and uploading it in such a graphical user interface. And in the end, you have this object in the scene. Of course, you can place it wherever you need it at this point. Of course, it's also possible, you see it from the controls, to rotate, to scale these things, and of course, to enter the timing. In the end, if you're fine with the positioning of these objects, then of course you can save and store these things. It needs an additional step that, of course, these included data sets has to be validated in the end. So we have a content moderation. Of course, please feel invited to apply also for such a content moderation if it is needed. So you see at this moment it's pending before the content moderators are enabling this object to be shown for public. More or less, that's in a nutshell how it works. And just to sharing some potential ideas, again, I think you have much more nicer ideas what to do with these things. We have used it in several cooperations as multi-touch experiences. So, for instance, that was an exhibition in the Cosmo Palace, but also we had some others in Amsterdam, for instance, in order to exploring the historical cityscapes at this point, but also to informing about a change of places, locations, etc. How did the city evolve over time? That could be potential things how to using this. Question for the presentation slides will be available. They are already recorded at this point, and also the links here will be, I think, shared maybe via the chat at this point. A second series of application is to providing virtually guided city walks at this point. For us, we are having another application. So, for instance, one for showcasing how cities or objects evolved over time in a 4D content-related view in mobile applications. So scenario is, could you stand at whatever place in the city and have a look on how this place looked several times ago? Here's an example we created with the Association for Vettelroute. So we have seen it before in the 4D browser. Main purpose here was, of course, to providing tourists access to the historical no more extant site and showing it on mobile phones for persons which are at that stage. How does that work? So in that case, we are showcasing a bit how to visualizing or how to including voice. For us, you are again using the 4D browser environment. And of course, you can, in that case, create a point of interest. So it's also working like a, I would say, 4-dimensional content management CMS system. And of course, you can enter either a web address there or also using this markdown in order to describing these specific places. So scenarios we had, for instance, here is to also including links to restaurants or and so on. In the end, a boy is created. So you see here's a preview at this point. Again, there will be content moderation, which is enabling these things also for the public in the end. And in the, if you are final with that one, you can also combine several of these points in order to creating a tour in the end. So the main idea here is to having a virtual tour where people can follow different of these points and therefore having a routing maybe through a city, through a heritage site or whatever, and visiting and seeing specific places in this heritage site. So you see here, it's by clicking these buoys at this point, and if you are finished, you can store it. So in that case, I named it My Tour with these two tour points here, save it in the end. And of course, now I'm switching to the mobile application. I can open it as a user at the specific site. And I have the chance, of course, to open this up amongst multiple of these tours, to searching for that one I just have created. So my tour, you see it here with the two stop points, and the green one is the first one on my route. And if I have completed it, I could go to a next step and so on and so on. How could you use these things? So again, I think you have much better ideas at this point, but we are using it at the moment for also school projects. So we are having children which are describing places they like, their favorite spots of the city to other kids. What would you like to show to someone who is visiting your specific city, children in the age of 10 or whatever? And therefore, we are creating these tours, for instance, where children could have I would say, follow or inspect waypoints which are suggested, recommended by kids which are living in the city. Another idea where we are using this application is, of course, to building treasure hunts. So, of course, you can visit specific places, maybe searching for something, finding for something, maybe solving riddles in that context at this point. And of course, in the end, maybe could win or see something which is maybe a bit unexpected. And finally, of course, it's a good opportunity to showing heritage objects which are not accessible at this point. So, for instance, 3D objects which are maybe in close gardens or whatever, in order to having an idea about what might be inside, what might be interiors, even of buildings or whatever, where people are not able to access easily. Let me now go to a very last set of applications, and that is about virtual reality applications at this point. So as mentioned to you, we are having this, at the moment, large-scale repository with these 85,000 3D objects at this point. And you see in that case that the principle is a very simple one. You could just have to click on one of the objects. So I was searching in that case for objects from the Hand Museum, but also if you look, for instance, for Egypt pyramids, you will have around 20, 30 results at this point. So it's a large database at this point. And if you would like to visualize something on UR classes, you have to open it on the browser on the UR classes and just have to switch to viewing these things in the UR classes. I do not have the UR classes, of course, in this record here, but if you now would click, of course, in the classes on showing it in the virtual reality, it would be shown as UR experience. Same situation in the end, of course, also to having this visualization for these holopyramids, so these pepper effect 3D, pseudo 3D devices. How could you work with these things? So that is one example from our colleagues from ITRIA, which is using these for creating postcard sets for visualizing heritage objects via the holopyramid. So it means it's giving this holopyramid device, just this piece of plastic, which you could put on your mobile phone. It's costing around 50 to 60 cents per piece. And they are issuing a series of postcards to it, where people could, of course, have an idea about how these 3D these objects have been looked as 3D objects, even if they are no more there in the city of Etria. Another option, of course, it's also available in a large way. So these holo kiosk opportunities. So these are devices which could be lent or purchased for a specific site, and of course showing also these 3D objects. So costs are around 1,000 to 1,500 euros per piece. And finally, it's about having these virtual reality things. Oops. do it without sound. Of course, that would be also a real asset from our repository, just recorded and shown it on the UR classes without any prior fine-tuning or work on these things. So in that case, the duty on your side, or what we would expect and would like for, is to having some nice and good ideas how to creating outreach events around these tools. Maybe that's in a nutshell about the 40 tools and XR. And let me now hand over to my colleague Alexander for the augmented reality opportunity.
Yes, hi. Can you click? Yes, nice. So we built an XR viewer. It's a standalone web page or in standalone code. You can integrate it into different application as you need, but we integrated it into the DFG viewer as well. And yeah, it's really straightforward. You scan in one example, you scan a QR code. You can scan this one showing up. Currently only with Android phones, but we will implement it as well for iOS devices. And yes, you scan the QR code and get to a web page. Currently in a development state, but then you click on the button on the bottom right, and you can start the augmented reality mode. Yes, Sandra, next slide. And then you can place the 3D model that's loaded into your real life environment, and you can scale it or you leave it as it is. It's a great way to show 3D models in your own environment and to have a great experience with all cultural heritage objects and artifacts. Yes. So the next steps for our viewer is to integrate it into the DFG viewer and also to make it ready for the iOS part. And I also can show a video how it works. Do you see something?
Yeah, looks like it loaded. Yeah.
Yes, you scan the QR code, get to the page, it loads. Yeah, it's a 3D viewer on itself, but the main part is that it's a XR viewer, so you place it into the real world. And then you can look around the model on your phone from all sides, go around things, and it's like you're standing in the next to the object. Yeah, you can scale it, and it works with the environment, so you can place it on top of things, and it's just nice. I think that was everything.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that intro. And with that, we will go to Pavel.
Yes. So hello, everyone. My name is Paweł Marciniak. I represent Supercomputing and Networking Center. Today, I am here with my colleague Krzysztof Adamczak, our front-end developer, who proudly implemented our 3D viewer, and we would like to showcase our PCSS viewer. So next slide, please, Krzysztof. So PCSS Viewer shortly is a universal and basic tool for displaying 3D objects. It was created, of course, this year as part of the 3D Big Data Space project, and it's still being developed. What's important, next slide. Technologically, the most current front-end development practices were used. And I am thinking of libraries like React and Three.js, for instance. And this is one of the advantages of this tool, contributing, in my opinion, to its lightweight nature, optimized browser performance, and the speed of working with 3D models. Next slide, please. What is important, PCSS Viewer is very easy to integrate and it doesn't require any complex programming work. It works via iframe, and this approach has all been tested during the integration of PCSS Viewer with the DFG Viewer platform. On the next slide is the screen. So please, next slide. Yes, this is the proof of concept of this integration. Next slide, Christoph. The current and modern technological stack allows, in my opinion, for relatively easy and efficient expansion of the PCSS Viewer. And I think there is also an opportunity here for certain minor or maybe major functionalities to be added, expanded, or modified, customized in some specific use cases. Next slide. In the context of supported files, so for instance, the PCSS Viewer now supports GLB and GLTF files, and this is tested. And it is also possible to support OBJ files, but I think we might consider also expanding to other formats if necessary. And now it will be our showcase. So Christoph presents you some functionalities in practice. Yes, Christoph, so you can stop sharing the presentation and you can start clicking in the viewer. Yes, so first of all, Christoph can add the annotation. Yes, it's possible to add multiple annotations, as we can see. We can also turn on the auto-rotate functionality. We can go to the annotation. Of course, turn off this auto-rotate functionality. Yes, we can reset position to our starting point. We can delete some annotations. Already we've got very basically object manipulations like zoom in, zoom out, rotating position. We can turn on the grid view. Yes, we can set also the color of the grid. Yes. So thank you. So maybe you can go to the presentation, to the slides. So in summary, Viewer, as you can see, offers very basic functionalities for working with 3D objects. I think that interesting feature is ability to work with annotations, and it's just not about displaying them, but it's also possible to adding, removing, and maybe also editing them, because we are working also on more advanced annotation editor, and it could be also available in the future. Next slide. Yes, so the viewer works without creating an account. All annotations are actually saved in the browser's local storage, and annotations are saved per 3D model. all the annotations can be deleted by clearing the browser's local storage. So this ensures, in my opinion, and increases speed when starting to work with PCSS Viewer. Next slide. And for now, PCSS Viewer will be used in an educational scenario in collaboration with Hunt Museum from Limerick in Ireland. But the universality of PCSS Viewer, I think, means that it can likely be successfully applied to a wide variety of project scenarios. So that's all for today from our side. So thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. Very interesting stuff. So with that, we presented the tools. Now we'll open it up again for some discussion and questions. And I think I can get to also, we've had questions and responses going on in the chat live as we moved along. I believe there's still a couple in there that haven't been directly answered in the chat. Though I will say there was a question about the 4D browser being geographically limited in Europe or not, which was answered that it is worldwide. So you can use it everywhere. This is actually probably a good question from Maria. If our proposal requires adding new features to the tools, will you help us implement them, or do we need to develop an idea that's entirely feasible given the current state of the tools?
Maybe I could answer here. Maria, many thanks for this question, a very important one at this point. So in our planning, of course, as you can imagine, we are having also with our development teams, of course, a certain timeline to follow at this point. So please plan at the one hand to using these tools at this current state at this point. Of course, if you would like to add something or enrich something, that would be possible, of course. But in that case, it would need to be part of your project to specifically working these things out. I think we had this question before, for instance, for having a website which is maybe embedding one of the viewer tools or whatever. So that would be these scenarios where you can, of course, enhance, enrich these tools.
Right.
Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Sander. And then there are a couple of questions regarding the PCSS Viewer. So I guess for Pavel or Christoph. You mentioned the PCSS Viewer is embeddable in web applications or platforms. Is it possible to embed it in a Unity application?
Very interesting question. We have never tested this approach. However, at PCSS, we've got also another Unity viewer, and I know that some parts of how to say React libraries were embedded also in this Unity viewer. So I could actually explore this path of the integration. Yes, so probably it could be visible.
Okay, thank you. And a question also from Jose. For the Room XR Viewer app, could it be used with the MetaQuest 3 since it's a mixed reality headset?
Yeah, I can't say, but we mainly developed the XR Viewer for mobile phones. So I think the MetaQuest 3 is mainly a VR camera with a VR headset with weak cameras to position itself. I don't know if it would work, but if you can open the DFG viewer, I think you could try it.
Okay, thank you. And there's no other questions in the chat, but we're open in the room. If you want to raise your hand or even just ask a question, please go ahead. Wait, no, we got another one in the chat. So no, we have a couple more in the chat. So we have a question about the PCSS Viewer again. Are there any limits for model visualizations? Is it possible to display something like an area, village, with annotations for a couple of buildings?
I think it is possible. I think we have no particular limits or something like that. Maybe it's, as always in those cases, it could be some troubles with efficiency or something like that, performance or speed, yes, but generally there are no limits about the visualizations.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question from Kali. Could you elaborate on the case of the VR experience with the headset and the requirements for such an application? Would it be just connecting the headset to the browser and to your tool to just view specific models according to the experience's design?
Maybe the answer here exactly that point. So also in that case, we have tested it with these Quest 2 and Quest 3 headsets at this point, and we are using, of course, a web XR application. So that means open the 3D models, and within this or with that applications in the browser of the headset of the VR glasses, and then, of course, using the web XR interface in that case or connector to showcasing it as a virtual reality experience. Should work with all headsets which are supporting web XR, if that might be a question.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question came in from Jokin concerning content starting with graphics. Is it possible to animate graphics from medical history?
It's a special question dedicated to Sander Münster, because in Jena is still, I hope, the archive of Olaf Breitbach, who started there, something similar than Time Machine, but he's dead now many, many years, and I wonder whether someone is using his archive, because I think on a European level it was highest ranking, and yeah, if someone can deal with it.
Jochen Büchel, many thanks for that question. I have to confess, even if we are based in Jena, I'm not aware of a state of usage of this archive at the moment. From my view, of course, sounds like a very interesting case. Although I would be very curious to learning about how that could be work, of course, in such a 3D, 4D visualization approach at this point. But I'm very sure about that there might be some very nice ideas how to realizing that.
Okay,
So,
I will engage to get some information for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see. Okay, a follow-up question again from one of the previous ones. Just for clarification, is there a requirement, obligation for at least one partner to belong to the consortium, or can all partners be outside of it?
maybe the question is about, does one of the partner needs to be in that consortium, which is the project consortium of the 3D big data space? Did I correctly grasp it, Mr. Aslan?
Yeah.
Yes. So in that case, it's maybe even the way around. So in that case, of course, none of the project consortium members are allowed to applying, of course, for these calls at this point. So their main dedication in that case is, of course, that these calls are envisioned and planned to having institutions, persons, companies, whatever from outside, and of course, therefore, partners from outside the consortium are most welcome.
Excellent. Thank you. Another one from Maria. Are the PCSS Viewer and the VR application suitable for architectural scale? Meaning, is it possible to navigate both the outside and inside of an asset?
I could answer it for the virtual reality application. So yes, it is. And indeed, it is one of the scenarios in that case to also entering these interiors of objects at this point via virtual realities, but also the same, of course, with the 4D World Viewer tools, specifically those one for smartphones. So yes, that works. And it is a usual scenario, of course, to inspecting or to visualizing past heritage objects, which are no more there with these tools. Looking to the PCSS colleagues for the 3D viewer.
Yes, so for PCSS Viewer, theoretically it is possible, but for now, we don't handle any physics or something like that. And I think now it is possible to, like go through the wall or something similar. Yes, so this is definitely a feature that could be elaborated in the future. Yes.
If I may, so I see another question from you, Alexander, from Zurich. Many thanks for this. So the question is why to integrating virtual reality at this point? And of course, it's a very obvious question at this point. So for us, the idea and approach is, of course, to enabling tools where we have, I would say, a multimodal access to objects, 3D cultural heritage assets. So virtual reality is one of those things, but also augmented reality, also other forms, like, for instance, specifically using these 2.5D devices, monitors, but also these holographic displays. So the idea is to being able to providing access, of course, on very different ways in order to also supporting these, I would say, different experiences which are possible with that.
Okay, thank you, Sander. And from Kirill, are you going to work with or plan to implement the 3D Gaussian splatting technique?
Yes, we have also in that 2.5D viewer front end, we are having a Gaussian splat viewer integrated at this point. So rather that two Gaussian splat viewers, so one is specifically working with these Gaussian splat implementation by Luma AI. Another one is a bit more ruggedized to working also with other types of Gaussian splat. In all cases, input data would be, of course, PLY files at this point.
Okay, thank you. And so we're coming up on about 5 minutes left in the meeting. So smooth sailing so far, but there's still an opportunity for anyone who has a question to either add in the chat or to speak up and ask or speak. Wait, maybe we have another one. So from Alexander, is it not the hope, or is it not the metaverse hope the VR may become something important? Can you tell me about the real advantages? Advantages, I guess.
Many thanks. It's a very important question indeed, and maybe in that case, rather trying to assess a bit or answer it a bit from this point of education. So in our experience, for instance, we are using these virtual reality experiences very much for specifically having a real life experience or assessment of architectural objects. So for instance, to learning and assessing also dimensions of historical objects. So that is indeed something which works well and very good in these virtual reality worlds. Also, it's about, I would say, immersiveness into these objects so that you are having, of course, a higher level of immersion or engagement with virtual reality. But that's, of course, very much scenario depending. Maybe to answering also this question with regards different tools. So for us, it's, of course, something where we are very much looking forward also to your ideas on how to using these different tools. Of course, please do not feel obliged in any way to using virtual reality or whatever. So you can use whatever tool you would see as helpful for your application. And for us, of course, the interesting point is, of course, what would be nice applications, nice scenarios to work with that. And so we are looking forward to your great ideas on that.
Thank you, Sander, again. So I think we're coming up to the end of our time. Of course, this isn't the last chance you'll have to ask any questions or give any feedback. You will find contact information on the presentation and our whole team at TMO and on the website, actually. And the whole team at TMO is here to help if you have follow-up questions later. Anything at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Don't know. I'll give one last chance to either Beatrice or Sander. If you have anything to add, please do so.
I think we covered everything, and as Kevin said, don't hesitate to write to us, and we are going to place all these questions that have been asked today and the answers in an organized way inside of the call, so that you're going to have them as FAQ to access them, as well as the recording and the slides.